On the same set of axes for x between 0 and 2 pi, sketch the graphs of y equals sine x and y equals sine x minus 1, which is a bit tricky, but what I'm going to do is just not think too much about the numbers, because if you think about 1 in terms of radians, that's not a nice number really. So y equals sine x, that's easy enough. 0, 2 pi, pi in the middle, pi by 2 in the middle of those, and 3 pi by 2 there. Nice y-axis, and the x-axis. We go up to 1 and down to minus 1. So sine, remember, it goes up to 1, down to 0, down to minus 1, up to 0. It rises steeply and shallow, shallow and steeply, steeply and shallow, shallow and steeply. So that's not bad. Then if I want to go to y equals sine of x minus 1, so say f of x, our parent function, equals sine x, or sine of x minus 1. Remember, we're changing the input before we put it through the machine. So if the function is to take sine of an input, then if we take one away from the input before we do that, we're changing the input. So it's f of x minus 1. It's something happening inside the bracket. It's horizontal. If it's adding or subtracting, it's a translation. So from f of x to f of x minus 1, that is a translation. It's horizontal because it's inside the bracket. It's a translation because it's an adding or subtracting, and it is kind of the opposite of what you might guess, kind of counterintuitive, because it's horizontal, because something happens to the input first. So this is a translation 1 unit to the right, and it doesn't move vertically at all, right? So 1 unit, that means 1 radian, which is quite tricky. If you think about what 1 radian is, it's 1 radian was about 57 degrees-ish. When you think about pi, well, that's just a little bit more than 3 radians. So if we take pi as being 3, then it's going to be roughly sort of this sort of distance here is going to be something like 1 radian. So everything's going to shift kind of that far on. So this is going to be somewhere around here. And just every point's going to be about that far-ish there, so we're not going to reach the end. This point is going to be somewhere over here, something like that. More points, maybe something like this. So our new function is probably going to go up something like that, down to here, down to there, and then it's going to sort of start to fall again and not get very far because we have to cut it off. But I should also include this bit. So if you thought about the old function, would have kind of been doing this. So this would start to turn as well. And here we would have been going like this, but we're not going to quite reach minus 1 before we go off the screen. So something like that. This is y equals sine x minus 1. So I'm not going to put exact values in, but if you want to think about values, well, this, for example, would be pi plus 1. This here, where it was pi by 2, it would be pi by 2 plus 1. And any other attempt to simplify those would not really work very nicely. But if you just want a basic sketch of what happens, well, everything shifts 1 radian that way. 1 radian is about 1/3 of pi-ish, and it's just under 60 degrees, so that happens. Right, the vertical translation should be a lot easier, and we can really get that in exactly the right place. The second one, we are looking to draw sine of x, and then we take away 1. So I'm just going to draw the parent function sine x again. So 0, 2 pi, pi by 2, 3 pi by 2, y-axis, up to 1, down to minus 1. So 0, pi by 2, pi, 3 pi by 2, 2 pi, so that's x, and that can be y. If we want to do a sine x, remember we start at 0, goes to 0 here and here. up to 1 there, down to -1 at 3 pi by 2, and it rises steeply and not so much, then steeply, steeply, not so much, and then so on. So that's sine x. Then if we want to do the next bit, so say the parent function f of x equals sine x, we want sine x, and then you take away 1. Well, what's happened, we've done, remember the original function was to take an input and then take the sine of it. We've done this function now, it does all of that, and then it takes away 1. So the whole of f of x happens, and then you take away 1. So that is outside the bracket. It happens, it's a change to the output, not the input. You do the input and then you only alter it afterwards, which isn't in terms of order of operations, that sort of thing. So this is a translation, so from f of x to f of x minus 1 is a translation. It's vertical, so it doesn't move horizontally at all, and it goes down by 1. So that should be a lot easier, except I'm going to need a bit more room. So I need to go down to -2 here, -2. So that means this point here, well, everything's just going to come down by 1. So where it started at 0 before, it's going to start at -1. Where it got up to 1, well, it's only going to get up to 0. Where it got here, this 0 is -1 again. This got down to -1. The trough now, the lowest point will be -2, and this 0 will be at -1. So like that. It's going to something like that. And then it's going to come down all the way down here and up to there. So that is sine of x -1, just like that.